Hi, this is Ron Burke from Gaming Trends, sitting in a chair that makes me feel a little like the Mandarin. I'm here with Tim Morton of Victory Games. We're going to talk a little bit about Command & Conquer. If you would, introduce yourself and tell us a little about the game.
Sure thing. So I'm the development director for the game, and Command & Conquer is launching this year as a live service, and it will feature the Generals universe first, and eventually we're going to get back to the Red Alert and the Tiberium universes as well.
So why did you decide free to play? How did that whole thing come about?
It's actually, for us, more about this idea of continuing to develop the game, that there's no one moment in time where we burn a disc, put it in a box, put that box on a shelf. We really wanted to have a structure where we could keep making the game better and better and not have to move on to the next thing.
So I noticed when I was having my ass handed to me by, what was his name, with the pop collar? Brosidon, yes. When I was getting stomped by Brosidon, that the dirt farming is a little bit different in this. So you've got 3 different factions. Can you talk a little bit about how resource collection works in Command & Conquer?
Absolutely. The 3 factions for this game are the European Union, the Global Liberation Army, and the Asia-Pacific Alliance. We may add some new ones over time, but for now, that's what we've got. Each faction has a different harvester, and there are some different pros and cons. EU, for example, has an airborne harvester, which gives them some flexibility in terms of not having to build an expansion, versus GLA, where you've just got a worker unit that's got to run out and collect those resources. You have to build a lot more. It's a bit of asymmetric faction design. They're not all equal. You kind of have to learn them all one by one.
So obviously with a free-to-play model, people are always worried about pay-to-win. Can you talk a little bit about kind of those aspects of how it's going to integrate with Command & Conquer?
Pay-to-win was, from the outset, something that we set out to avoid. So anything that impacts gameplay can either be earned or purchased. So if you want to earn it, you can just play the game, accumulate command points, and you'll have access to it. If you want it faster, you can purchase it. The other really important aspect for us in avoiding pay-to-win is making sure that players are matched fairly. So regardless of whether you got to a level by playing the game or by accelerating, you're going to get matched against another player who is a fair match. Doesn't matter whether they paid or whether they earned.
So it's more of a pay for convenience than it is pay to win.
That's exactly right. And we may have some visual upgrades or things like that, but we really want to keep it fair because we're gamers too.
Sure, and that stuff's all cosmetic, so that's not really a big deal. Talk to me a little about the generals. How does that work? How does it differ from the first Command & Conquer generals?
So it's funny, the original Generals actually didn't introduce Generals until its expansion pack, 0 Hour.
0 Hour.
Yeah, it was funny the way that worked out. So we really liked that concept of having modifiers on the base faction, and we're right now exploring exactly how far we're going to take that in terms of differentiation, but what we do know is every general is going to have an impact on gameplay style. So if you're somebody who likes massive power projection, somebody who likes stealth, somebody who likes area of effect weapons, there will be different generals for you. So it really gives players a chance to pick their play style and find out who they like.
So obviously this has an opportunity for esports. Have you guys thought about how you're going to align with esports, broadcasting, that sort of thing?
Yeah, over time we've got a lot of ideas for features that we hope appeal to esports players. I think our feeling is it's up to the esports players to decide to play our game, so we want to make it as conducive to that as possible. Being a live service, we've got the chance to iterate. So at the beginning, we're not going to have, for example, the ability to record your sessions, but over time that's a feature that we're going to build in so that if you want to share it with others or hopefully even live stream it, those are features we want to provide to players.
Speaking of others, can you talk a little bit about the multiplayer? How many players, that sort of thing? What kind of units do you expect, not units, but number of units should you expect to see on a field in a typical battle?
It depends a little bit on play style, but Command & Conquer traditionally has had very large numbers of units, and we want to support that again. I've noticed even here at the show that we've had a number of PvP matches where players are building up a massive force, holding it back, and coming into these big clash battles. But then I'll watch some other players playing skirmish or co-op, and they tend to be a little more defensive or conservative, so it does vary according to the player.
Yeah, my attack style was actually conservative, but I just didn't get enough units in the field to get it done. I had a surrounding perimeter of snipers in his base, and he had no idea until the very end when the map was revealed. But I couldn't quite get through his tanks that he managed to field in.
I got it. Yeah, and that's the great thing about real-time strategy is, I mean, there are so many tactics you can employ, and your strategy could have worked out.
Yeah, I just needed more time and maybe a little bit faster base expansion. My micro is a little rusty.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm a defensive player myself, so.
So talk to me about the cooperative side of things. How does that work with cooperative play? Is it how many players versus how many players? You know, what sort of AI leveling is there?
Right now, there are a couple of different ways to play in a team sense. So the biggest map that we've built for team-on-team gameplay is 3v3, but we're going to build some bigger maps. There's no hard limit in the engine. In terms of playing cooperatively against AI, we've got this mode that we've introduced called Onslaught. Right now, we've got a 2-player against AI, but again, we're building some bigger maps there, and we hope to even have more game modes that have co-op gameplay. So we want to do a lot with that. We feel like there's fertile area for innovation in RTS there.
So on the free-to-play model, I've heard that you guys are not going to be charging for maps or new gameplay modes. Is that correct?
That is correct. We're trying to avoid the situation where you have haves and have-nots, and it just prevents people who want to play together from being able to play together. So for maps, we're intending to just make those available. For game modes, in general, I think those will be broadly available, but there may be some exceptions, like if we do a story-based game mode down the road.
Now, talk to me a little about the Frostbite engine. How is that working? I mean, obviously that's an engine that was purpose-built for shooters, and this is obviously not that. So how is that working with that engine?
There were some things we had to do in the beginning to get real-time strategy to work in Frostbite. You know, one example would be they expect that when a level is loaded that the units that you're going to use in that level are already there. Obviously, for a real-time strategy game, that doesn't work. So we had to make some changes like that. But once we got real-time strategy game mechanics working in the engine, there's so many wonderful things we got, from just DirectX 11 graphics to the real-time physics and client-server networking, which just has massive impact on quality of gameplay experience. Less cheating, less susceptibility to other players' lag in the game.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our readers?
I would just say I'm super excited to have people come in and try Command & Conquer later this year.
I have to admit that I was a skeptic. Free to play usually means cheap to me. I've looked at a lot of games and I thought, I'm really excited about this, but when I got to play it, it was just less. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like you could take this product and put it in a box and label it as a AAA title and sell it on the shelf. So I'm really impressed. As a Command & Conquer player who played from the VGA 256 colors, I bought my Packard Bell 100 megahertz computer to play Command & Conquer. So when I say that I'm an old school fan, I am an old school fan, and I'm very impressed with what you guys have done here.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. We really do want to make sure that people understand this isn't a browser game. This is not a cheap, dumbed-down version of Command & Conquer. We're making Command & Conquer, and the free-to-play part, that's sort of it's a new business model, but it has nothing to do with how we approach the game. We're trying to make this the best Command & Conquer there's ever been.
Well, speaking of the best Command & Conquer, we've actually nominated you as one of the best RTS titles for the show, so congratulations to you and your team.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. We really appreciate that.
And thanks for your time.